to Run With Purpose. This is episode number 92. And for those of you that are new to the show, my name is Flores, and I'm so very glad that you found this podcast. Would love if you would subscribe. And as always, you can reach out to me on all the socials at flores.run. Hope everyone is having a great week so far. Hopefully you're staying warm, whatever part of the country or world, I guess, that you're in. It's freezing in Minnesota, but that checks out because it's winter. Today's guest is a returning guest. We had her on the show a very long time ago. We were just talking about before we started recording, back when this whole COVID thing really started to get some traction, if you will. You guys know it feels like forever ago, but Robin was on episode 39, where we kind of talked about this idea of yes, I can, how we can do more than we say we can do. And we can kind of, when people say no, be like, oh yeah, I can do that. So today's conversation is kind of an extension for that. But Robin, thanks for being on the show again.
Yes, thank you. Absolutely. Anytime.
It's always fun. It's always fun to have a nice little Tennessee accent too, because it's having that country swang. I've had too many New Yorkers and Californians on the show lately. I needed some variety.
Mine is not that bad compared to some, let me tell you.
But I love every minute of it. It reminds me of just back living in North Carolina. I was saying this the other day, like you just, obviously you fall into accents as you talk to people that have that accent. And when I start saying Minnesota, I have like the Minnesota thing, like the extra O, and I'm just like, oh, this is bad. I've only been here for like 4 months and I'm already doing this. I'm like, I need to stop that now. But yeah.
That's when I moved back from Indiana. I had to come back to Tennessee to get my accent. There
you go. Got to bring it back. It's much better. Indiana is like a weird mix of that though, because it's like Midwest-ish, but parts of it can kind of be like more of the South. But then you also have some of the other. Yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, today we're gonna kind of, like I said, continue that conversation of yes, I can, and this idea of like taking a leap, trying something new and kind of getting out there. And Robin had brought this topic up, so I'll let you kind of take the floor of kind of what's going on in this idea of take the leap and like your thoughts around it.
So I have a lot of friends that have told me recently, gosh, I can't believe you're doing this. And what I mean by doing this is starting your own business, going out on your own. It's a big, scary world. Any kind of business, solo, with friends, where do you find the time? Where do you find the money? Where do you find the energy to get out there and just do it? Or running your first 100-miler, just any kind of first that you can think of. So because sometimes I just leap before I think, which has done me well in some instances, but done me well in others. So July of 2020 was actually when we had this first episode, was when I started with this business. I was working for another lady who owned the business, and then she wanted to retire. So actually this business that I purchased, that I'm running, which is Nutrition LLC here in Nashville, just kind of fell into my lap. And I wanted to run my own business as a dietitian for actually when I first went to school as a dietitian, I said, this is what I want to do. I want to be in private practice. And then after graduating with my master's degree in 2018, it just kind of happened because I kept thinking this is what I want to do, and I kept pushing for it. So when I lived in Indiana after getting my master's, I kind of started my own side business. So I went from working in the hospital, and then on the weekends and evenings, I would see clients for my private practice, and then decided to move back to Nashville, and kind of here I am. It's not been easy at all. So, and running your own business, taking that leap of faith is not easy, I have to say. But if you believe in yourself and you know that you can do this, and you push hard and you work hard and you do the work, you can do anything.
Right. I mean, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go.
I was saying, yeah, the whole idea of like the believing in yourself and having that like confidence obviously is like a big part of taking that leap, right? I know when we talked last time, you were prepping for, I think it may have been your first ultra. You had already done one, and that was going to be your next one. And I know, like, from a running aspect, you're really trying to understand that. And we can sometimes, especially in the runner's world, get this idea of just this imposter syndrome of like, who do I think I am to run a 100-mile race? Like, that is still something, as long as I've run, that is still something that just scares the living shit out of me. That I'd be dumb, that I'd be dumb enough to actually sign up for a 100-miler, because I know once I sign up, then I'm obviously going to do it. But it's this idea of like, that's just like next level to me. So I'm still like in awe of you. When I saw you posting that stuff online, I was just like, well, I'll be cheering her on, because there's no way in hell I'm going to be doing that anytime soon.
And same, I don't consider myself a great runner at all, period. I'm not fast. I'll never be first. I will probably never podium in some big race ever. I'm there for me. I'm there for my mental stability, my mental health, my physical health. So as a dietitian, that is one thing I do prioritize, is mental and physical health. Thinking about the epidemics in the world today with disease and obesity. And so that's kind of what's pushed me to run my private practice, is to help those that need it, whether it be a clinical disease or obesity. And I'm actually going to work towards hopefully getting my certification in sports nutrition this year as well. So I'm starting to work with endurance athletes, because doing it yourself, you get to realize, oh, there's a lot more to this than just going to run 100 miles.
Who would have thunk?
We got to think about drinking. We got to think about eating.
There's a lot of pieces to this puzzle, but I think you said something there that was, I had to write down. It's this idea of like, when you say I'm not the best runner, or I'm not a good runner, whatever the case might be, which bullshit, by the way, but that's a whole nother conversation. But this idea that you're there for you, like I'm there for me, like we're doing these activities, not necessarily to make our names known or to kind of push the envelope so people are aware of who we are, but really it's like, hey, though, this is for me. This is like my solitude. This is like my peace, my comfort. And especially with like mental health, especially just right now with everything that's going on, it's like 1 week we're allowed to be outside, the next week we're not. And then we can't go places, and you can't see family. You can't, like, it can be tough, but this idea of kind of taking a leap and trusting yourself to kind of say, you know what, I can do this, and giving yourself some goals, some things to do, I think is super helpful, just to kind of push you out of that comfort zone, right? It's so easy for us to sit in our day-to-day in the monotony and be like, nope, I'm cool here. Like, if I only run marathons, that's great. I only run marathons. But like I said, you're a crazy person. Like, I see this stuff, the murder mile stuff or the other thing. I'm just like, I don't know, like, good for you. That's what I say. But I think that's where the difference from like maybe me and other people is I understand that piece, and I can just respect it. Be like, hey, that is for you. Go all out for it. And I think understanding like my leap is going to look different than your leap, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so, same with everybody. It doesn't have to be ultra marathons. They can go swim the English Channel. You can go bike across the US. You can have a friend right now that wants to read every single one of the top 100 of Time's best novels. It doesn't have to be, it can be whatever you want it to be, just what makes you mentally and physically feel good about yourself, because we need more of that. There's not enough of that. There's a lot of negativity in the world. When you turn on the news, actually, I don't even watch the news anymore. I don't. I don't want to turn on TV. It's all negative.
It's right. And I think the issue with it is the more negativity it just fuels, especially with our cultural climate, at least in the US, just with how polar opposite everything has to be. You either sit on one far end or one other end. There can't be like, hey, can't we just love people? Like, can't we just be good human beings and like help each other out?
No. No, not at all. So I'm just thinking of this story in my head of where you'll pull over on the side of the road and help someone with a flat tire, but then you go punch somebody in the face for the last loaf of bread on the shelf because of the winter weather. laughing at, I'm just neither here nor there.
But it's so true. Like how often do we, when we don't align kind of our values with our everyday actions, when like the stress of it comes, right? Because from running a business and then finding time to take care of yourself mentally and physically, like it's exhausting. Like that's a full-time job itself. It's just making sure you stay sane. And this idea of starting a business and then everything that comes on with that, it's this idea of trying to be like your authentic self throughout, right? Like how do you make sure that everything you're doing is kind of aligning with those values, moving forward with those values, knowing that like, hey, hiccups come, things happen. You're not going to get it right 100% of the time. But how do you kind of make sure that every step you take is kind of pushing you towards that mission, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I had a thought there too. So you just said something that sparked a thought in my mind about pushing forward. And I can, you can listen to the podcasts, you can read motivational books and spiritual books and whatever, but ultimately you have to put in the work. Great, you read this book and you feel motivated and you're like, yeah, let's freaking do this today. But do you actually get up and go do it? Do you actually go help that person? Do you actually do the work you need to do to get the business going? Do you actually put in the miles you need to put in to run that marathon or 100-miler? So at the end of the day, are you proud of what you've done? Are you happy with yourself? That's kind of how I look at it on a day-to-day basis. So when people say, how do you do it? I would never be able to run a business. Anybody can run a business. I mean, right. You can draw stick figures and sell them on the side of the road for all I care. That's a business. So it's just, do you want to get up every day and draw stick figures and sit there and talk to people, communicate, sell your business? So really all up to you. I've listened to podcasts. I've read motivational books, and that doesn't get me going. What gets me going is how I feel at the end of the day. Did I do my best for me? Do I feel good mentally? Do I feel good physically? And if I don't, I'll write it down and do better tomorrow.
Yeah. And I love that mentality of too. It's like putting in the work is like, all right, so knowing it is only part of it, right? Like if you know the thing, that's great. Mm-hmm. I know what to do and what not to do, but if I don't act on that, it's kind of useless. And this idea of putting in the work to make sure you kind of go after that goal. But I really like that last part you said of just like, you're realizing that, hey, I'm going to fall short in areas. So I'm going to write it down and do better tomorrow with it. I think so often, I know I do this a ton, is I beat myself up when I make mistakes, or I do things maybe the way that I wouldn't have wanted to do them, in hindsight. But this idea of literally writing them, journaling, however you want to call it, of saying hey, here's where I failed in this. And failure is not a bad thing. We've talked about this before, of this idea of if you're not afraid to fail, you're never going to do anything in life. So this idea of being able to look at the things that you may not have completed or succeeded the way you want to, and literally have a list of learning opportunities of saying, hey, this is where I failed. And then, obviously if you see the same thing on the list multiple times, okay, maybe there's something here, maybe something's related. How can I adjust something? I love that tactical response to it.
Mm-hmm. So I use that with my clients whenever we're talking about, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I just want to lose this weight that I put on, and I've tried all the diets and I've counted the calories. And of course, my first thing is, have you taken a journal and written it down and looked at it under a microscope? That's the first thing I generally do, is write everything down, write it down. And then they'll come to me a week later and be like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that I ate this many times a day, or didn't eat this many times a day, or I was only drinking 12 ounces of water a day. Or I thought I was doing more than I actually was, or doing, less. And so all these realizations come to light when you actually write it down and put it in front of your face. So I do not make fun of those people who have Post-it notes all over their house or in their mirror to look at on a daily basis. I'm like, put it on your refrigerator, on your mirror, something where you're going to see it, because your brain cannot hold everything. Mm-hmm. You're going to forget there's too much going on in the world today. There is too much to know, so much information. We're bombarded online, books and things and news and media and all the social media. It's your brain is exploding. So write it down, put it in front of your face. Yeah. It helps.
Yeah. I mean, there's, like you said, there's a lot of pieces of information and like how fast information gets thrown at us now. It's so easy to kind of lose track. I'm the worst because like I'll write notes on a pad and then I'll also type notes on like a notes app, but then I also have like the stickies on my computer and then I have Post-it somewhere. I'm like, I just need to get a better organizational system for my notes. But I think the idea of jotting down thoughts, jotting down ideas, I'm sure like if I looked at my phone right now, I probably have like 50 notes that just have like one sentence. And that one sentence could be like, hey, I was running and like right when I got back to my phone, I thought of this idea for a podcast episode, or I thought of a good, cool concept or a design or something like that. And I think it's so true that if we write these things down, we become more aware of them. Another thing with it too is you can write it down, look at it the next day and be like, that was a stupid ass thought. Like, why did I think that was a cool thing then? It gives you almost that time to sit in it, because if you don't even write it, you're going to forget it. And then it may have been $1 million idea. I always joke that like, I'm sure I've had $1 million ideas on my runs, but I don't carry a phone while I run. So I had no way of documenting them. Like, well, that sounded like, I know I thought of something for those 15 miles, but I couldn't remember what it was.
So that reminds me of an idea. So as an entrepreneur, you think of just ideas randomly and you're like, oh, that sounds great. And then you think about it and then you start talking to people. And I did that when I first moved back to Tennessee in 2020. I was like, what can I do to bring in some money on the side? And as I'm running on one of my long runs on the weekend, I'm thinking, I like to run. I love dogs. I could run with dogs. I'm going to create a business and call it Dog Tired. And I'm going to go run people's dogs.
That's awesome.
And then I started like asking people, but then they start coming up. This is where the negativity comes in. They're like, oh, but what if something happens and liability and this and that? And I'm like, you're just like, you're kind of go down into a little hole slump. And you're like, I just want to run your dog for like a mile. Can I not just run your dog for a mile? What's wrong with running your dog? I don't get it. But it's true. What if you get hit by a car? What if the dog gets off the leash? And then that dog does, animals are stupid. So there's a lot of liability in play.
Yeah, that's a good point though, because you from the doubter side, not the thing. I think that business idea is a swell idea and you should still go after it, in my opinion. But this idea of, we start telling people these ideas, these dreams, these leaps that we're wanting to take. And instantly, 98% of the time, you're just getting hit back with well, this is why you can't do it. Or here's the problem with that. Yes. I know I do it all the time. Kayla comes up with some like amazing ideas for Hangry or for the photo business or for anything. And instantly I go straight to we can't do that because of this. Or I've got to think about this piece. And it's like, no. Why am I instantly cutting this stuff off? Like, no, like let's say, before I say no, let's say maybe, and then really think about it. And then if it's a no, it's a no. But say maybe first, don't lead with the no. But what's like some helpful ways that you can like get around those doubts and not kind of get sucked into them?
Well, that's a good question. Because when I got hit with those doubts and everybody's like, nah, I just kind of quit. I quit reaching for that little side business there. And that's a really good question. I'm passionate, I guess, with the dietitian aspect in my current private practice. I'm really passionate about health and wellness. And so I can dodge those bullets more easily because it's what I'm super passionate about.
Yeah.
And I can look at people and say, obesity is killing the world, cancer is killing the world, diabetes is killing the world. I'm helping. What are you doing? Um, so I can come back a little bit if and that's something else. How do I was going to. You've got word salad on me here. So my business takes insurance, and that's a kind of a hoop I have to jump through. My business has to jump through insurance. Working with insurance companies and those liabilities is not fun. So a lot of private practice dietitians, therapists, doctors, some of them don't take insurance at all. And that's why a lot of people won't go into private practice, is because they think they have to take insurance or they have to battle with insurance companies. You don't have to. But that's a lot of pushback I get is with insurance. And I'll continue to push through again because I'm just super passionate about it. I don't have a better answer for you on that.
No, I think you said the answer without realizing you said the answer. It's this idea of when you're passionate about something, or you kind of find a way to persevere through it, right? So it's when it's kind of turning that page and understanding like, hey, I have some stupid ideas. I would say like 99% of my ideas are quite dumb. However, if I'm passionate about 100% of them, then that 1%, I'm going to nail that 1%. If I'm always passionate about it, we're going to go through it. And that's why I always I'll design shirts that literally this shirt has never been for sale. I liked it and I never sold it. And I was just like, that's fine. I'm the only person that has it. But it's like, I've seen other people like, oh, I really don't like that. I'm like, well, I like it. And this is what I'm wearing. And it is what it is. We have these passion projects. And if we can think of kind of almost everything we're doing of taking that leap, because I mean, you're obviously running in a different crowd right now, because as you start running longer races, you start making friends that don't think they're as crazy, which is a weird thing. It's like, oh, my current group of friends doesn't think 100 mile is as crazy as my original set of friends was. That's just how it works. I had I need to find it, but Pete Custodic, he was the guy who ran from Alaska to Key West in 98 days or whatever.
Kenai to Key West.
Yeah. Him and I chat all the time, and we were talking. He just did a 6-day race out in Arizona. I think it was maybe a little over a mile loop, and you basically just do it for 6 days. I know he didn't have a great race. I didn't see what his thing was, but he was hoping to basically win. He's won it a couple times, but he had to tell them of he had posted a picture of his food, and I made the comment of do you run the whole time? How do you sleep? All of those real jokes of just I can't imagine driving that long. And he's like, I have to post these things so my non-running friends and family understand how this thing works. I don't know where I was going with that thought, but it's this idea of I think I got it. As your friends kind of change with these things that you're doing, you start inherently having people around you that are just as passionate about the thing that you're passionate about. So again, if you just started running and you're like, I'm gonna do a 100-miler, everyone around you will be like, you're batshit crazy. And then more than likely you're gonna get in your own head and you're not gonna do it. But through that progression, as you change relationships and meet new people, you kind of get people that are more on your side, and we gravitate towards that, right? Wherever we're being accepted, we're going to kind of gravitate towards, which is why I will tell anyone now, ultra running is like a drug, because as you get into the community and you start meeting new people, you find people that have gone further than you and continue to go further than you. You'll never catch up to somebody else, but you get this feeling of just being a part of a community that's always kind of backing you and pushing you. So I think, like I said, I think you answered the question without realizing you answered the question. But it's this idea, I think, of if you're passionate about the stuff, I think that's kind of what helps you drive to say hey, the doubters on the outside are one thing, but I guess one question for you in terms of that, obviously with all of the running stuff you've done, but the business stuff, all this stuff, I think self-doubt is where it's so hard to really understand how do we quiet, if not try to silence, the voice in my head that I'm not able to do this.
Um, hmm. So I encourage those that have that self-doubt to go to a volunteer at an ultra, volunteer somewhere that has those people that you want to be in the in crowd with. Um, Go to a meeting of some sort or a community group thing that has that collaboration and those that has that same mindset as you, and you will start to get past that. So as a dietitian, we have to maintain our licensure through continuing education units. So we have to do webinars and we have to do all that continuing education stuff. And even at first you're like, oh God, I don't want to do this. And what the heck am I doing with my life? And this is stupid. But then you get there and you start collaborating with other dietitians and talking about how to improve health and wellness in the community or in the hospitals, especially now with COVID. I know ICU dietitians and everybody that's working with doctors, and it's horrifying. But you get that sense of that fire is lit under you again, and that passion burns a little bit brighter each time you put yourself out there. And I'm going to put that out there into the ultra running too. So when I go to, I'm going to list a specific event. I'm shout out to Tennessee Mile, Mid-State Mile, Becca and John, that are the race directors here in Franklin, Tennessee. Come to their event, watch these ultra runners run this 1.1 mile loop with 340 feet of elevation gain per loop at Mid-State Mile, which is the last man standing race in June. Watch the emotions come across that line every 20 minutes. Watch the tears, the smiles, the laughs, the cursing. And at the end, you just were like, yeah, this is great. I love this. It just gets you that emotion going and that passion going. And just that. So just get out there and get your butt out the door. Go meet people, go to events, wear a mask. Don't be afraid to go out the door. I understand that, people are afraid of COVID, but in order to light that fire and be passionate or get going again, you have to get out and do something. You can't sit in the house.
That'll be the title of this episode: wear a mask and go outside. But this idea, like, it's so funny though, because obviously in the last few years, we don't know the long-term effects of all this stuff, but how many people are afraid to go outside, are afraid to be around other people. And I understand if you have underlying conditions, there's obviously, I'm not a doctor and I don't even play one on TV. So I'm not going to pretend like I know what the hell I'm talking about. But we get, from a mental health standpoint, like, it's not good just to talk to people on screens. You need to kind of be with people. You need to be outside. You need to get fresh air. You need to do those kinds of things to really help yourself and really help just like the community as a whole, because we're all in this together. We're all dealing with it, but it's how do we actually react in those situations?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I hate to say this, but therapists, psychiatrists, doctors, we're all booked. Dietitians, we are all booked for several months in advance at this point, because the mental health crisis has skyrocketed. So that's what I'm saying. Get outside. You see, outside, go out there.
Oh, that green stuff on the ground. That looks nice. I haven't seen that in a month.
Get some vitamin D. That's how you get it, is some sunshine.
But it is funny how we can get caught up in self-doubt, not really realizing our full potential. And then you add something like this, where all of a sudden I'm not having community. I'm not interacting with other people. I'm not doing things with people. And your self-doubt just gets louder. It's not like it goes away. Mm-hmm. I was talking to somebody earlier about this. It's the idea. It's like, I don't know if you can ever silence it, but you can quiet it. You can minimize the noise it makes because it's always there. We're programmed with our environments and how we've learned and everything. That's just innate in us. So how do we kind of, quiet it? But at the same point in time, if when we add these things where we don't get outside, we don't try to get into community, we're hurting ourselves in the long run.
Yes. And that's where I come back to the challenging yourself to make that list, make those goals. What do you want to do? What do you want to do? You have all these choices and decisions to make in your life. You have a whole new year ahead of you. Most people have a long life to live. What are you going to do with that life? You've got one life to live. What are you going to do? So again, challenging my clients to write down, just start with your first 3 priorities, write it down. That's all you got to do. And then look at that number 1 and then break it down. How do I get to that? How do I get to that priority? What do I need to do to get there? Do I need to buy new running shoes? Do I need to enter a race? Do I need to call somebody and ask for help? Do I need to hire a CPA to help with taxes?
Are you just reading from your to-do list? Like that's exactly what's on your to-do list now.
Buy new running shoes, hire a CPA.
Oh, that's funny.
No, just really asking yourself that reason why. And it's a hard question to ask. Why do you want to run 100 miles? Why do you want to run a business? If you're feeling that self-doubt, go back to your baseline, go back to square one, kind of starting over a little bit and understanding your reason why again, and pushing those self-doubts aside.
Yeah. And I think that helps with like the idea of this taking the leap that we kind of keep coming back to is you're going to have moments, you're going to have speed bumps, you're going to have things where you're just like, what the hell am I doing? Like, why am I continuing to do this thing for whatever reason? And yes, it's good about stepping out in faith, getting uncomfortable. But like you said, is you need to know the why you're doing it. Like if you're not doing it for you, okay, are you doing it because somebody else is asking you to, or is it somebody else's dream, or you feel like you're expected to do it? All of these things of why you're doing something. But if you don't know the why, you're never going to figure out the how. So it's like, I love that. Like getting back to the first point of understanding what my why is in this circumstance. And then from there, literally, being tactical with it, writing it down, making sure that you like can break it down into a piece that makes sense. I love that.
Mm-hmm. And that's a battle a lot of my clients have is they're losing the weight for somebody else or for something else, or getting healthy or battling an eating disorder or gaining muscle or whatever it is that they're trying to accomplish in their nutrition journey. If it's not for them or if it's not for you, you probably won't be successful. So we'll have to step back and reassess what the heck you're doing, Yeah,
I mean, because you think about if you're living somebody else's dream or giving somebody else's idea of how you should be doing. I mean, I'm sure you see that a lot, like you said, with people losing weight for someone else. Like if I looked different, if I weighed less, or if I had more muscle, he or she would like me more, or that's how I get someone to fall back in love with me, or whatever the case might be. And on the surface, I get the sentiment. It's like, hey, this is what it is. But to everyone listening, like if someone is basing their affection, love, or whatever off of like the way you look, it's probably not healthy. Like, again, not a doctor, don't play one on TV, but that's not a healthy place to be in any type of relationship, whether it's a friend or something different, where it's this idea of, if I change, then so-and-so will like me more, or I'll be respected more, or I'll have more influence. And I know I dealt with that a lot, just corporate career-wise, of like, I didn't fit the bill. Like I tried to be the nice thing. I'm going to go up the corporate ladder. It's going to be buttoned up. We're going to wear the ties. We're going to be like super professional. And then when I left my old company where I work now, it's like, I joke, but it's like a bunch of hippies with where I work, where it's just like, senior leadership has like, huge giant gauges in their ears and it's like covered in tattoos and stuff like this. And then it helped me realize like, wait a second, like these people are also very smart and very successful. Like, why are we judging people by the way that they look? And that's why it's like, I grew out my hair and I'm doing whatever. And it's like, you know what? Not that I'm trying to be like unprofessional, but I want to be me. Like whatever that is, like that's what I want to be. And understanding that like, hey, my work ethic and the things that I do are going to kind of speak for itself. So when we take this approach, take this leap, even if it's not like a physical thing, starting a business, running a race, but like taking that leap for yourself to step out in confidence to know like, hey, I'm worth it. And I'm going to continue going after my hopes and dreams because that's what's important.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then of course there's that quote that you do what you like and do what you want and do what makes you happy. And then you attract that, which I have found it's taken me 35 years to realize that doing what you want and doing what makes you happy and your life, that it attracts the stuff that you want in life, and it gets rid of that negativity that you don't want, and gets rid of that drama that you don't want, and those people that you don't need in your life bringing you down. Your circle gets smaller. That's fine. Who needs 100 friends anyways? When you have those few that will do anything for you and give you the shirt off their back. Yeah. And that's where I found in the ultra community, and my RD friends as well. They love you for who you are. They'll do anything for you. So if you need someone to pour soup down your throat at mile 50 or pop your blisters on your feet, I mean, they're there for you.
Those are real friends. When you see those people like at aid stations, like feet off, like massaging feet and doing that stuff, and I'm like, God bless you, because I'd lose some friends. Be like, you know what? I don't think this is for me.
So then we had a friend new to the whole ultra running thing, and she was just joining us as kind of a crew member on our last 40-hour race in December, and she had to stick her fingers down some dude's throat. She never even knew, because he had a tooth issue, and he was like, I need this dental stuff put on my tooth. I don't know you, but can you just stick it in there for me? And that was just the funniest thing ever.
But you think about those things.
She's like, hi.
Nice to meet you. Open wide, please. But you think about those things, and it's super interesting because in that type of community, no one knowing the other person, you're always willing to help, always willing to like lend a hand. Always. And it's crazy how like if we as a society just acted like that we took care of people where they were at with what they needed, because we usually have more than we need. And this idea of like what I have isn't meant for me. And I'm not necessarily talking about like money and stuff, but like we have time. How are we making a difference? Your dietitian stuff, obviously you love it. You went to school for it. You're doing it. You have your own business, but you're really wanting to help people live healthier lives. Like that's the whole point. Like you are giving back in a way. Yes, it's a service, but the reason, your why, is because you're making people healthier, you're helping them make healthier decisions. The reason I do what I do is because it's super creative and it's interesting. And that's why I have like 15 projects going on at the same time, because I always need to be like doing something crazy. But I think when you kind of lean into that and kind of say, go back to the why, it makes it easier kind of to take the leap. Because yes, you're still stepping out in faith into unknown territory. But again, you know what your passion is, you know what your why is. So you have a good foundation that when you jump, you're going to land on something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then finding that community to help you. So this is finding the RD community, finding the ultra community. If you have those self-doubts, that's why I said, you've got to step outside of your house. You've got to go talk to people. Go find a running group, a local running group to run with, to get that fire back under your butt. Go to a community event, whatever it is, to light that fire again. But that's what's going to keep you pushing and keep those self-doubts quiet, I think, is finding that community within your passion with what you want to do.
Yeah, for sure. Robin, thanks for being on the show again. It's always like the time just flies by. I look down and I'm like, oh man, we should probably wrap up here soon.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Which 100-mile race are you doing?
Have a shout out though. Hennepin.
Okay. Good. Do your shout out. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I was going to say I love Becca and John and BMFJ Endurance, and so would love to see some more faces at their Last Man Standing event in June at the Mid-State Mile in Franklin, Tennessee. Come join us for hours and hours and hours of fun. But we did their 40-hour event last December, and it was a blast. And there was, I think, 30 runners that did the 40-hour event. And you want to get to know people real well. Come out, hang out, camp.
That's
you
the
might
best
even
and
get to
worst
see
of
some
people.
molars. You never know. Blisters, molars, whatever it might be. But yeah, I am running my first 100 in October at Hennepin and would love to see some friendly faces. So come on out, cheer me on, would love it. Or come join me for a couple miles.
Yeah, I'm gonna look at my schedule. I know I said it before. We talked last time. I was like, yeah, I'll come out and crew or whatever, and then I moved further away. But I'm gonna figure out sometimes I can come out and run with you. It's only been 2 years in the making, but we'll figure out somehow to make that work.
Absolutely, absolutely. Or you should come down to Tennessee Mile and do the 24-hour event next December.
Well, December might not be a bad time to leave Minnesota, so. That we might have to talk about that. See, this is why you can't have ultra friends. See, you're already talking me into something, and I didn't even think about it yet. Next thing you know, I'm gonna be registered for it. Yeah, sneaky, I see it. But for those that want to kind of get in touch with you, what's the best way that people could reach out or learn more about you and kind of what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So my private practice has its own website. It's called youtritionllc.com. And that's nutrition spelled with Y-O-U as in nutrition, focused on you. And then you can also hit up my Instagram at rockandrobin.fit. That would be fantastic. I would love to help anybody. I do a lot of virtual sessions with clients. So happy to take any type of virtual client at this time, even if it's across state lines. So even if you're up in Minnesota or up in Ohio or Indiana or New York, or I can't do that. I can't do that.
You tried. You started with the Minnesota and then you just went way down. That's okay. It's okay. A for effort.
I'm done. Yeah. Done.
Perfect. So we'll have all of our information in the show notes so you can check it out, reach out to Robin. Robin, thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you.
To everyone else, reach out to me on social media everywhere at flores.run. You guys know the deal. Subscribe, leave a review for the podcast. Super helpful. Visit the website, www.flores.run. Go to wearehangry.com, buy some hangry gear. You won't find this one, but you'll find some other cool stuff. So check it out. Remember to keep running with purpose, one step at a time. See you next week.